Okay, we are going to pick up where we left off with the Build Your Own Shell in Zig Codecrafters Challenge. So in the last video, we got executable lookup working for the type command. We're going to refactor a little bit and use that to make it so that we can actually run a program. So let's get started. Okay, so on my screen here, sorry, let me move a couple things out of the way. Okay, cool. So on my screen here, I've got the Codecrafters Zig Shell Challenge thing up. Today, we're going to be working on running a program. So in this stage, you'll add support for running external programs with arguments. External programs are located using the path environment variable as described in previous stages. Here's some information on how it will test our program. So it has a custom exe1234 that it calls and passes the word Alice. And it says that the program was passed two args, including the program name. arg0 is the program name. arg1 is Alice. And then we have a program signature. I'm guessing that all four of these come from the custom exe, and that's not something our shell is responsible for. The executable file will print information about the arguments it was passed along with a random program signature. Okay, yeah, cool. The tester will verify that your program prints output from the executable. Sounds good. Sure. Any tips for this one? After implementing this, you can submit your stage in your shell because Git, where the Codecrafters CLI is in your path. Very rewarding feeling. That is really cool. If you're seeing an error like this, output does not match the expected value, try running the command as custom exe4834 instead of using the full path. Okay, cool. So let's get started. So the very first thing we need to do is open up our editor. So I'm here in the Codecrafter shell repo, source main.zig. And in our last video, we took care of a lot here. So we added to the handle type method that we've created. And what we need to do is essentially take all of this and move this to another method. So what we're going to do is create something, a little bit of refactoring. So we'll call this something like function, locate, how about locate executable? So we'll do something like that. This will return an error, maybe const u8. So maybe an optional error string. That is a mouthful. And we should be able to paste something like this. And instead of trying writer.print, what we need to do is essentially just return the full path. So let's take care of a couple things. So on line, if we go up to 17, what we can do here, let me move my mic, sorry about that. Okay, so what we can do is go ahead and add our allocator here. So we take in an allocator. Whoops. Do we take in anything else? I don't think we need to yet. Okay, so instead of what we were doing, we need args as well. Okay, so instead of returning the try writer print, we don't want our writer in this method. This should not be aware of our writer at all. So this is just going to locate an executable for us if it exists. So in our case, let's define the case where it does not exist, which would be null. So it would return null. Otherwise, if we do find a match, we want to return something to give us the entire path. And I don't think we have the entire path. So what we can do is return something like standard fs path join. And we need to give an allocator, which we have access to here. And then we need to have a slice of paths that we need. So in our case, we can take a slice of const u8, and we can pass these in. So the very first one would be the folder, and then it would be the entry.basename. So with that in mind, we should be able to remove the following line. And then we need to pass in args. I really don't like the name args, so we're going to change that here, at least in this. So this will be executable, and this will be a slice const u8. Okay, should yell at us here. Good. And then we can set executable here. Okay, we can go back to our type command up here. So what we are doing, we removed basically everything right down here. So what we need to do is locate that executable. So if try locate executable, we will pass in our allocator. And then we need our executable, which is just going to be args because that's what we've called it. So then we can get the path here. And if we have the executable, we need to do writer, sorry, it should be return try writer.print. And I have already forgotten what the format was for this. So let's go back and find out. So it is command is and then path. So this would be something like s is s. Please, thank you. And then we can come over here to our args, and what we can do is pass in args path. So I think that should be pretty good for us. So what I'm going to do is change into Codecrafter's shell zig, and I'm going to use Codecrafter's test previous. And this command just runs the previous tests, or it runs all the previous tests as well. And the reason I'm doing this is I just want to make sure that my previous tests still pass after this refactor. So this will take a second, and hopefully it'll tell us if our code is a solid refactor or not. Okay, so it looks like we have a basic error on line 68. So let's hop back into that, take a look. Interesting. So error union payload U8 cannot be cast into an error union payload of const U8. Okay, so this may be a little weird, but what I want to do is essentially say const path is equal to try, and then I'm going to return the path here instead. And I'm curious if local path, okay, so we'll just call it P since we're immediately returning it. I actually am not 100% sure about this issue. I want to try this again. In theory, we should be able to promote a slice of U8 to a slice of const U8, but I think because there's an error union here, it's actually not letting us automatically promote that. I could be wrong on that. Could be completely wrong on that. So take that with a grain of salt, but that is the path I am experimenting with at this point to push this forward. I'm going to let this run again, and we'll see how things hopefully have changed in just a moment. Okay, cool. Most of our tests passed. There is one more issue that we have. I feel like I run into this every time. So if we go to handle type, I always forget to put the new line here at the end. So that should fix that issue. It's good enough. I don't need to test this again. I feel pretty confident that will fix that issue. So let's go ahead and move forward with the next challenge, or the next part of the challenge. So we have our locate executable function. We have our handle type. I'm just trying to remember how this code is structured here. Okay, yeah, so we check to see if it is exit, echo, or type. Else, we say command's not found. So we need to change that because our else case is no longer command not found. Instead, what we need to do is we need to try to find that executable. So we can do something like const exe is equal to try find executable. And that takes in an allocator, and then that takes in a path, which is, we've called this args up to this point, so we'll continue calling it args for now, but we really should change that. And then we basically just want to check if the executable exists, then we'll do something with it. So if, let's make this a little cleaner in idiomatic zig. We'll do the try find executable right here. Could do our allocator, pass in our args, and then we have a path if that is found. If it's not found, we will go ahead and do our standard debug print right here. Looks like use of undeclared unidentifier find executable. Let's spell executable correctly. Still, did we not call it find executable? Am I losing? I'm already forgotten. Locate executable is what we called it. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We'll stick with locate executable. Much better. Much better. Okay, cool. We don't actually need this one since we're doing this in the if. We're destructuring our path. One of the first things we want to do is defer allocator.free path, because this is being returned from locate executable, but we are not cleaning it up in locate executable, which is, it's okay. We just need to make sure that our caller cleans it up then. So we'll defer freeing that path that we find. And now we actually need to process the executable. So what we can do is we have standard process that we can leverage. So we have standard process child, we can run, and we can init. I think the simplest thing for us here would probably be to use run. So we'll take that approach. So we get a response from this. So this would be a response, and we can try standard process child. I think run would probably be simpler. I say that, and holy cow, that is a lot of types that were provided right there. Okay, so with run, we have access to a couple different things. We have, is it args? Is it argv? Is it args? AR, not sure. Let's look up the docs. Zig standard process child run. Okay, so there's information on spawn, exec. I would really just like the documentation. So let's see if we can find the documentation. I'd take an example. Child init, allocator, standard. Okay, pipes. Actually might be a better path forward. Okay, let's pull up the standard library and just see if we can find the information we're looking for. So we have child process child. Process child. Oh, that could be part of my issue, is I was looking for the wrong thing. So we have run. Okay, it is argv. That's what I thought. I'm not sure why my editor was showing me args instead of argv. So we can do argv is equal to, and then we need those args. So we'll have to find those. And then we also need to put in an allocator for this process. So we can do an allocator is equal to, it's a standard mem allocator. So sure, allocator. Okay, we just need to fill in argv, I guess, from the looks of it. Okay, so let's take the argv that we have here. Let's see if we can just go ahead and create a slice to hold all of this. So this will be const u8, and the very first one will be command. The second one will be args. Okay, sure, feel fairly decent about that. So we run our command and then we get a response. So then what we can do is something like try. Our writer here. Okay, we'll just grab standard out. That's what we would want in this case. So stdout. And we just want to print whatever we get back from our res, right? So our res, it's a child process, so it should have access to res.standardout. So we can just copy over standard out into our standard out print method here. And there might be a better way to do that with like piping or buffer to buffer. That might be something we can investigate too at some point, but for now, let's move forward with what we have. This looks good. Language server is not complaining, which is a great start. I'm going to go ahead and run zig build here, just make sure everything builds. Cool, it does not. Who would have guessed? And what we need to do is add an ampersand here to coerce that to a slice. Expected tuple or struct argument found U8 on... well, I actually don't see where in my code that's coming from. I'm sure we can find it. So we have argv, we have our allocator here. Maybe not. Oh, oops. Yeah, it's right here. I don't know how I made that mistake. I feel like I shouldn't be making that mistake anymore. But this will be res.standardout, and we need to wrap that in a struct because the args that get passed to print are a struct. Cool, it actually built. So let's say Codecrafter's test, and we'll give this a shot. All right, we have an error. Let's fix it. So part of our issue here is that we're printing two things. So the first one is we have custom exe 3209 Alice command not found. The very first thing is that we shouldn't print the args as well. So we'll go ahead and change this so that we're just printing the command. That's not actually related to why this test is failing, but just something else that came out of that. I'm going to go ahead and run the previous tests one more time since we didn't run them earlier. I just want to make sure that path lookup is still working like we would expect it to. Okay, path lookup is still working like we would expect it to, which is great. We just have an issue with our new code. So let's see if we can sort this out. Oh, really basic mistake here. I'm passing in args, mainly because we've been working with args in all of our methods. But if we actually look at what we want to search for, if we're loading an executable, we're loading the command and not the args. So I was looking for Alice or James in this case. And I shouldn't have been looking for either of those. I should have been looking for custom exe 4162. So let's go ahead and write this and give this another run. We shouldn't need to run previous because we know that the previous tests all pass. So let's just run Codecrafter's test and see how this turns out. Awesome. Okay, so that worked. We have executed a program. And in theory, what we can do now is we can zig build run this, and now we have a shell. So I can do something like git. Oh, maybe I didn't need to reinitialize the git repo. But okay, so we're in... we still have a long way to go for our shell. But we're here, right? So we have our shell. So what I'm going to do is close out of our little micro shell that we've worked on. Okay, so we have that working. Let's go ahead and git add, git commit, git executables working. Let this run. Go ahead and push this up. It'll run through our tests one more time. Everything should be good since we just ran through them. And then if so, what we can do is we can move back to the Codecrafter's UI over here. And, oh, we're on the wrong one. You can see that tests are running. So we'll let this run. And everything passed. So we can move on to the next step. If we hit mark the stage as complete, we get a really nice confetti. But more importantly, we get to this part where it says the base stages are complete. From here on, you can customize the order in which you want to complete the remaining stages. So you can choose the extensions that you want for this. And you can see that there are other ones that have been voted on, so we'll get some of those at some point. But navigation, quoting, redirection, and auto completion are things that are already available, so we can make some headway on those. And maybe we will do that in some of the future videos for this series. I like the idea of doing navigation next, so PWD and CD with absolute paths, relative paths, and home seem like good ones to go for, so maybe we'll do those next. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for tuning in for this series so far. We've got the basis of a shell down. In fact, you should be able to execute programs in your own shell, which is pretty darn cool. And if you found this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on videos like this. We talk about Zig, Go, sometimes Flutter, occasionally SvelteKit. And I would hate for you to miss any of that. It's a free opportunity to learn, and I did not have enough of those growing up, but hopefully you do now. And if not, subscribe and you'll have a couple more. Thanks, and have a great day.